How's it going, guys? What you're going to see today is a pretty good run I had pretty recently with the Scout Chopper or the Little Bird. And of course it's in the DLC map, Silk Road, which is, I find, really conducive for really good Little Bird runs. And if you'd like to see more Little Bird run tips and tricks, because I do plan on doing a breakdown of, say, tips on how to fly, strategies I use when I'm in the air and flying. And if you'd like to see those, I will break them down in the near future. But this one here, this map here, I usually get a lot of really good Little Bird runs in. And I'll break down, the first thing I'll do is, like I usually do, at least when I'm breaking down videos on the start, because Battlefield 4, despite being out for a few months, there's still a lot people are figuring out and tampering with for best loadouts. But on average, this is the loadout I almost never change for Scout Choppers. The primary weapon is the 25mm cannons. And the reason being, these things have incredible splash damage in addition to actually while doing great damage at the start. What you see in the background already there is the laser guided as the secondary weapon. The laser guided, well, there's only two choices. You have heat seekers or laser guided. The heat seekers are more obviously intended for air-to-air encounters, but the reason being that I feel on average, as long as I'm able to have a repairman, because having a repairman in this game is, well, it can keep you in the Little Bird forever. Like a lot of the, like the reload rate, even though it was nerfed recently, the reload rate with 2 engineers repairing your chopper and with you playing smart, staying away from multiple lock-ons and cover, you can stay in the air for, well, the whole match. I didn't have an engineer helping me out in this particular match, as you can see. So this 25 or so streak that I had basically came from playing defensive and playing smart when using and flying the Little Bird, and that I'll touch on that more in a bit. But you have two options with heat seekers and laser guided. Like I said, heat seekers are more intended for air-to-air encounters. The laser guided shell, which you'll see me use, or the laser guided shot and anti-air missile that you see me using in this particular match, is highly suited for ground. Well, actually, it's only suited for ground attacks. I'm not sure if you can actually use it against air targets unless they're laser designated. I'm not sure if that even applies anymore. I know it did in Battlefield 3. I'm not sure if it works in 4. I haven't actually tried it. But the laser guided itself is actually really, really nice to use against ground targets because it's very heavily damaging. The only one tip you have to use with it is that when you actually fire it, you have to maintain the lock on the ground target. You can't just fire and forget like you were able to in Battlefield 3 with the Little Bird. It was fire, switch back to your primary, and the target would still hit. Doesn't work in Battlefield 4. It'll go awry the second you let it go. So make sure if you're actually using the laser guided shot that you maintain it all the way until the target hits, then decide to switch. That's the one tip for it. The countermeasure always would be the same for me. You have basically 3 options, and the fire extinguisher, based on the mechanics of how choppers now work in Battlefield 4, the fire extinguisher actually would have a bigger purpose. Flares are flares, obviously. They break lock-ons that are coming towards you, but they do not break anything to do with laser lock-ons. But that's why the ECM does. The ECM prevents targeting systems from locking onto you and disrupts any missiles coming your way. So the definitive choice for me, if you're going to be choosing a countermeasure, would be ECM. But if you don't have a repairman, because the real danger is if you don't have a repairman and you take damage and land to repair, a lot of the time someone on your squad will spawn in and take your chopper from you. So that's always a bit of a danger. But if you feel that you don't want to take this risk, you can always use the fire extinguisher because it clears any, critically damaged states and starts the vehicle recovery. But I believe you have to be at least below 35 damage for it to actually use it. So it's a bit of a risk. Because a lot of the time if you get dropped below 35, an attack chopper or another scout chopper is already on its way to try and hunt you down, and they'll drop you a lot below that before you even get the chance. You'll see an illustration of me or in the video at some point. I don't remember when it is, but I do actually switch to the second seat while I'm taking damage to repair it to get back into it again. And that's by far the most definitive strategy when it comes to repairing it quickly. But like I said, the biggest danger is that someone will actually take your Little Bird from your squad or spawn in, so it's always a danger with that. But it is easily the best way to repair it. But my choice, obviously, like I'm saying, for countermeasures would always be ECM Jam. And the reason for ECM Jam, like I said, is that it not only does it break a targeting system, it disrupts incoming missiles as well. So best of both worlds. My upgrades, of course, that can change. The way that choppers work now is that if you actually get disabled or you get hit by a stinger or something like that, it'll read as low power or it'll read as like critical damage. And a lot of the time, when you're flying a scout chopper, as long as you're a pretty decent pilot, you can still maintain your control of it. Your altitude will drop a bit, and you'll be a sitting duck against someone that's already got a lock on you. But you can still maintain control of it until that actual temporary disable goes away, and then you're right back to normal again. You can use gyro stabilizer if you really choose and you struggle with a critical hit. Stealth coating's pretty nice because it increases the time it takes for systems to lock onto the vehicle. And this actually would have been nice for me in this particular map, because the tips I use in this particular map, because there's little to no places to take cover unless you're using, say, the sand dunes here, because Silk Road's basically in the American side, which I'm in. For the most part, on average, on the American side, you only have the sand dunes as cover. You have the mountain regions on the other side, which aren't much cover either. But that's the Chinese side, which isn't mine, obviously, in this case. But I play more defensive strategy here, and the stealth coating would actually help me out against lock-ons, because I do get eventually taken out by some guy with a lock-on. Stealth coating would have allowed me to at least get away, because when you're playing defensive, stealth coating helps you out, and like I'm saying, I'm playing defensive here. As you'll notice, I don't really track further than our range, and the reason for that is I don't have a repairman to help me out. And like these choppers a lot of the time are just sitting ducks. One hits and hard disable, so a lot of the time you have to switch to repair yourself. But I figured my logic was simple. If I stayed in my general area and tried to make sure that the enemy didn't take any of our flags, that if the rest of our team was able to push and get, say, those middle to intermediate flags, then we'd have a really good shot at winning. So playing defensive, racking up kills, and keeping our flags, well, at least trying to keep our flags. It was tough. A lot of these guys in Silk Road take a dirt bike flank, they immediately take the flag as you're fighting another, and a tag or a flag you just took ends up being retaken. So that's tough. But if you're able to at least maintain your own flags, which I did playing defensive because I didn't have a repairman to help me out, and ECM takes a while to recover, so if I had gone beyond, say, the middle intermediate part, going for that one flag that determines the match, my chopper would have been taken out immediately with all these lock-ons. But stealth coating would have helped you there. Proximity scan's another nice one to use as well. The reason being because as long as you're low enough, and that's another downside. I wish there was below radar in Battlefield 4. Below radar sort of separates the difference between skilled pilots and non-skilled pilots. If you're able to stay below a certain altitude without killing yourself or getting yourself killed, you should be rewarded with that inability to be locked onto, which would help out great pilots immensely. And I really wish it would, because I'd just stay low the whole time. But since you don't, you can put on proximity scan, which would light up on your mini-map everyone that's on these low areas. In Silk Road, of course, you don't really need it in this aspect because a lot of the infantry stands out like a sore thumb versus on the sand. But in this particular match, I went with belt feeder. The reason being, obviously, it takes the reload. The reload time is dramatically reduced, so you're able to put out more DPS, and that was the area I'm talking about earlier. Hopping in to repair my own chopper. But belt feeder is able to increase your DPS, so that helps you out immensely, and that was my default for this. You could choose air radar as well. Air radar would be most definitively helpful in situations where you're going to be getting in lots of encounters versus other scout choppers, attack choppers, jets. So Gulmud Run Railway would probably help you out the most. But other than that, air radar to me, if you have a good headset and your teammates are spotting the choppers, your minimap will light them up anyway, so it's putting out more DPS will probably help you out the most. But that's the basic breakdown that I always use for scout choppers for the most part. I don't really deviate on it because I feel I'm most successful with it this way. But the tips and strategies for the most part, I'd say in this particular 25 streak or so, with no repairman. That's why I like this particular round, because I've seen lots of guys get 80 kill streaks on YouTube, but the problem being, of course, that they've had 2 repairmen the whole time. Their chopper never actually gets below like 70% health, even when 3 stingers are hitting them all at once. It immediately goes from, like, I don't know what, if they're 25 or so damage, 30 damage, they go from like 10 back up to 100 in a matter of 2-3 seconds. So it's, to me, yes, the pilots themselves have some skill actually being able to pilot, but having 2 repairmen to me takes away from an 80-0 streak, because like anyone can, I fight for the most part. As long as you're a decent pilot, you can do it. This was 25 on my own. If I had 2 repairmen, I'd be able to push up and get a lot more. But that's the basic loadout I use. But that would be another quick tip before the video ends, that if you're going to be without engineers or people willing to repair you, or you're in a situation that you know is dangerous and you don't have ECM well, first you should always wait for your ECM to recover before you even go on attack. Be more patient and don't listen to that guy that's telling you to push up. He's an idiot. That's why I turn the chat off a lot of the time sometimes. But make sure your ECM is back before you push. But if you feel no one's going to repair, or it's just going to be a death sentence, do what I did here and just at least control your own flags. And that way, if the team pushes up in this case, like as they did here, look at, we're taking their flags again. Best way to win games for your team is to never give up your own flags at the very least. Hope you enjoyed. See you later.